Welcome, welcome. Just give us 1 second to make sure everyone is in from our waiting room. We want to make sure everyone is on the same page. Okay, perfect. It looks like everyone's in. So welcome. For those of you who've been here before, welcome back. I do recognize a few faces, a few names. If you haven't been here before, we are the Marine Environmental Education Center, located out on Hollywood Beach, Florida. We are still currently closed. We are working on opening plans. We will keep everyone informed as we move forward. But until we can open up again, we still want to be engaged with the community and make sure we are providing some really cool resources for everyone else who's stuck inside along with us. So we are doing our webinar series. For those of you who have been asking, we are going to extend it into August. We are underway making a schedule for August webinars, and we'll keep everyone updated on all of our socials once that's finalized. But for now, we are finishing up our July series. We're very excited. Today we get to talk to Dr. Chelsea Bennice. She is the Assistant Director of Ascend at Florida Atlantic University. She is a scientific writer for the nonprofit OctoNation, and she is very focused on octopus. So her research spans from octopus behavior all the way over to the bacteria living on their skin, which is really cool. We're very turtley focused here because we do have Captain. She is the star of the show and we love her, but we're really excited to be able to talk about octopus today. So if you have any questions, we're keeping everyone muted just so you could more clearly hear Chelsea while she presents. But if you have questions, or even if you have technical difficulties, just throw it in the chat there. Christina and I are here. We will be monitoring the chat and try and help virtually. Otherwise, she will answer all of your questions at the end. So whenever you're ready, Chelsea, feel free to take it away.
All right. Let me share my screen here. Go back. Gotta go back to the beginning. All right, well, thank you everyone for joining me. So like Taylor mentioned, my focus of my work is octopus behavior, but I'm starting to get into octopus bacteria, and I'll mention that a little bit later on in the presentation. So I don't know about you guys, but it's been pretty rainy, cloudy, and thunderstorms here if you're in Florida. And so I'd like to start off the presentation by taking everyone on a virtual field trip to my study site, and that's also in Florida, and it's about 2 hours north of the MEEC Center, and it's located at Blue Heron Bridge Phil Foster Park. So that's within the Lake Worth Lagoon in South Florida. And as you can see, it's a beautiful day there. We've got clear water, and you actually see your first octopus during the daytime, which is super exciting. It can be very difficult to see these octopuses sometimes. And also at night, you can see another octopus right here actually out foraging or searching for food. So we have a number of different species in Florida, and actually you can find at least 5 of these different species or different types of octopus at Blue Heron Bridge. And so I'm just going to briefly go over the different octopuses that you can find in South Florida and also at Blue Heron Bridge, so because that is where I spend most of my time doing my octopus research. So first up, we have this beautiful Caribbean reef octopus. And you can just see in parentheses here, that's the scientific name that scientists use to communicate with each other, so we don't get confused on which species of octopus we're talking about. So here we have this Caribbean reef octopus. This is a nocturnal species coming out really late at night. And a distinctive characteristic of this octopus is how it has this iridescent color. So you can see this bluish green color along this area right here is called the mantle on top of the eyes, and actually all throughout the arm webbing. And so that's one key characteristic. If you're out snorkeling or scuba diving and if you see an octopus and it has this, that is the Caribbean reef octopus. Next up, we've got the brown striped octopus, and just like the name, it's got these brown stripes that go along its entire arm. And so you may not see this octopus always have what we call kind of like this start or threat display. So when this octopus feels startled or threatened, it will put on these brown stripes and usually expand its web to look scary to a potential predator. However, you also notice that it has this really grainy texture or grainy pattern along its mantle right here and along its arm webbing. And so that's another good key characteristic for this brown striped octopus. Next up, we've got this really tiny octopus. This is actually a close-up shot from one of my friends, Sandra, and this is the Caribbean two-spot octopus. And so try to keep this simple with the common names. Why it's called the Caribbean two-spot is it's got one spot on each side, right below its eye. So there's a circle right there for you. You can kind of see it kind of has a blue iridescent ring inside. And so we like to call these false eye spots. So the octopuses will use these to trick predators to say maybe the eye's right here instead of up here, because they don't want the predator to take a bite of the entire octopus. They're trying to make sure that they can escape. And so here's another picture of this animal, nice camouflage. And so that blue ring on each side below the eye. So just to make sure you understand, this octopus only has two, it looks like blue rings. So if you see an animal like this, it isn't a blue ringed octopus. The blue ringed octopus is only found in the Indo-Pacific area. All right. Next up, here's the first star that you saw in the video. And this is, the fancy name is Macrotritopus defilippi, the scientific name, but we're gonna stick to common names because they're a lot easier to say. So this is the Atlantic longarm octopus. And just like the name, it has super long arms. So I keep saying the mantle. And so the mantle's right here. That's where all the important organs are from the octopus. It's hearts, stomach, gills, ink sac, all that good stuff. And so when scientists like to measure octopuses, usually we measure their mantle length. So that mantle length from the top all the way to the tip of the mantle. And just to give you an idea of how large this species is, its mantle length at adult size is about 2 inches. And so I usually like to use my pointer finger as an example. This is a relatively small octopus. Its mantle length is only 2 inches, but its arms can be like 6 times that length, 6 to 8 times, so 12 inches or more. And you can kind of see that from the picture over here when it tries to take its long arms and wrap it around its body for when it swims across the sand plains. The next star of the show, or my research, is the Octopus vulgaris, or the common octopus. And you can see here that it looks maybe similar to the other ones. However, it's different from the Atlantic longarm in size. So if you look at mantle length right here, usually the octopuses that I see of this type, that mantle length is 8 to 10 inches. So much larger than the Atlantic longarm, but the size range of this animal can vary at my study site. So it can be as tiny as the Atlantic longarm, or it can be much bigger. All right, and you'll also notice that the arms are much shorter and much wider or thicker than the Atlantic longarm. So all of these characteristics that I point out about the different octopuses is what's helped me ID the animal in the field. And that's really important for the research that I'm doing, because what I was looking at, well, I see all these octopuses at Blue Heron Bridge, my study site that I showed you in the video. And I'm wondering, like, well, how can all these octopuses be here with similar requirements for resources like habitat and food? How can they be here, coexist, and not compete for resources? So this is a big question in ecology of species or octopus coexistence. And so that's a really big question to answer, octopus coexistence. So we want to break this up into smaller questions. So what I did is I broke it up into specific research questions that I could answer. So the first one is, where exactly do they live at Blue Heron? Kind of look at their spatial distribution, like where do I find them there? Are they there year round? Do they hang out at Blue Heron all the time? Do they come here at different seasons for a reason? What do their homes look like? So you'll hear throughout the presentation the word den. So I call the octopus's home, I call it the octopus den. So that's what they live in. And I want to know what types of substrates, like rock, rubble, or structure, maybe sand, what do they use to make their den? Next up, when are they active? So if you don't want to compete with another animal or another species, you may be active at different times of the day. So I'm looking at their activity periods, when they're going to go out and find their food. And then lastly, looked at, well, what do they eat? Maybe they're eating different things. So they are partitioning their food resource. Maybe one octopus is eating a certain type of meal and the other one is eating something else. And another really cool thing to learn about octopus biology is how exactly do they eat their prey? So we'll get into that as well. All right, so we've got all those research questions. And what was a fun part about my research is that it was all in the field. So I got to do a lot of scuba diving, which was my favorite part, to be in the water exploring how these animals live at Blue Heron Bridge. So you can see, just as the big star shows, that's where Blue Heron Bridge is. And this is a zoomed in kind of bird's eye view of Blue Heron. Here I am up in the corner getting ready to dive. So I have the dive flag to make sure that I'm safe. Everyone can see that there's a diver below. In this little, I'm holding like a little waterproof bag, and that has a Garmin GPS device in it, and we'll talk about that in just a second. And over here is this PVC pipe structure called the quadret. So I'll get into that when we get to that research question. So here I am down here. What I do is I'll drive across Blue Heron, park inside the park. I gear up, have all my gear on, and then I get in the water and I search. I swim up and down, just like that animation, up and down Blue Heron Bridge. And so to give you an idea, my study site is this solid white line. And if you were to swim all around that solid white line, that would be about a mile swim. Pretty good workout. And so I break up the sections and I swim and I look for octopus. When I see an octopus in its den, in its home, I'll ascend to my dive flag. And so it's really nice that Blue Heron Bridge is a shallow water location. It's about 10 feet deep, 10 to 15 feet deep. So that means I can safely ascend to my dive flag, and then I take my Garmin device that's in that bag and I click a button that says mark this location. So that marks the location of where I found that octopus den. And so what I did is I did that over a few years, 3 years, and I marked. So in all the green spots are the common octopus, all the pink spots are the Atlantic octopus that I found at Blue Heron Bridge. And to show you a nice screenshot of all of that, it's right here. So in total, I marked 296 common octopus dens, and I marked 138 Atlantic longarm dens. And so I mentioned this was over 3 years, and I love diving, so I spent a lot of time underwater and exactly 371 dive hours. So since it's a really shallow dive site, my scuba dives are usually 2 to 3 hours long. So this makes it a perfect location to study octopuses and their behavior and what's going on at this habitat. So what we found from answering this first question is that octopuses are underwater neighbors. You see all those little dots over the years. They live in relatively the same place. And you can see that the pink and the green, which are the common octopus and the Atlantic longarm octopus, they live really close to each other. And just to give you an idea, is sometimes when I was marking one den of the common octopus, about a couple feet away was an Atlantic longarm octopus. So sometimes they're living really close to each other. And so we saw all those tiny dots, and how close of that is that exactly? I gave you an idea of like, well, it's about 2 feet, but let's just say we had an underwater football field. We've got FAU, I'm part of Florida University now, but I'm originally from Ohio. And so I did my first schooling at the Ohio State, so I am a Buckeye, and we can talk later about my journey and how I got into marine biology, being from Ohio. And so here we've got, let's say, an underwater football field. And so we want to first kind of divide that in half, divide it again. And if you take the spot about from the goal to the 25-yard line, you have this area. And let's just say in that specific area, you could find 12 octopuses. So these octopuses are not to scale right here. As you can see, they look pretty large. So if you imagine octopuses maybe the size of an egg all the way up to a dinner plate. So that's kind of like the sizes that I find. Some of them can be much smaller than that. But if you were to swim this area of the football field, you could potentially find 12 octopuses in that area. And that's a really like dense population of octopuses in a small area. So they're being underwater neighbors, and we're trying to figure out, well, how are you living so close? What's going on? And so next up, I promise this is the only graph I'm going to show you guys, but I wanted to see if this dense population of octopus is there all the time. So you remember all of those pink and green dots that we saw over the year? What I did is I split all those dots in the year up into seasons. So we have the winter, spring, summer, and fall, because I wanted to see if the abundance or number of octopus changed for the different seasons. So right here we have number of octopus from 10 octopus all the way up to 60. And then along this, right here we have the season. So you can see low number of octopus in the winter. We have a lot of octopus in the spring, some in the summer, and then it drops down. We have the lowest number of octopus for both species during the fall. So the common octopus is the dotted line. The Atlantic longarm is that solid line right here. I found fewer Atlantic longarms, and that's because they're really hard to find. Remember, they're really, really small, but they both still have the same trend. And so that springtime is what I've termed now as octopus season. So if you're interested in seeing octopus, the best time to see them at Blue Heron Bridge is during those spring months, or almost right now if you want to go. So they're still there. I actually was diving yesterday and I saw an Atlantic longarm on my dive. All right. And so we get into the next question. So we know where the octopuses live. We know that they live next to each other, but we don't exactly know how do they live there and what homes and what dens they're using, what substrate they're using for their dens. And so this gets into the octopus habitat. So remember that picture that you saw of that quadrat, that white PVC pipe thing. What I'm doing is I'm directly over an octopus's den, and I have a camera in my hands, and I'm taking an image of this area right here. So since I know this area, this square is, I can calculate and I can figure out how much of that area is rock, how much of that area is sand, rubble, sponge, and so on. So to give you an idea, it probably looks really, really tiny on your screen, but this is actually the picture that I took over here. So that really, really tiny red dot probably on your screen, that's actually an octopus sticking outside of its den. And what I'll do is first I'll take a picture, and I call that the den habitat, and then I actually take 8 more pictures for a total of 9 pictures of the octopus's habitat. So I just call that surrounding habitat, but we can just call it octopus habitat to keep it simple. And then the not so fun work for me, because I love being out in the field, I take all of these pictures, I put it into this software, and it helps me calculate the percentage of substrate makeup. So if the octopus is living in rock, rubble, or sand. So I actually did this for 810 photos. That's a lot of photos to look at, and most of it's just sand and rubble. But what's really cool about science is after you do all this work, you get to see the results, and the results are really meaningful. And what we found out from this is that they have different den habitats. So the common octopus, kind of like you see in this picture, its habitat is that rock rubble, we see some shells, and so it uses a lot of structure to create its den around. And over here on the right side, you have the Atlantic longarm octopus, and it's all sand. And you see this octopus uses its really long arms to help dig a hole. And so the hole is usually the size of a quarter. So it's really small, but it's about 12 inches deep. So it digs this tiny hole, and then it has its entire body goes down into that hole, as you can see here, to hide from predators. So this gives us an idea of how important patchy environments are. And kind of just to show you kind of an overview of what Blue Heron Bridge looks like underwater. In this area right here, there's a lot of sand, and we call this the swim area where you can swim at, and there's also a snorkel trail that you guys can visit and see a lot of cool reef fish. So there's a lot of sand here besides the snorkel trail. But remember, all those tiny dots that were octopus dens were concentrated over here on the west side, and they were also on the east side. And on those two sides of the bridge, we have this patchy environment where we have rock, rubble, and structure, but we also have sand patches. So since we have this patchy environment, these two species can be underwater neighbors, but they're living in different dens or different homes. So that starts to answer the question of how these two species can coexist at this study site. So we're just checking off the research questions. Next research question was their kids. I think this was probably one of my favorite research questions to answer, because you definitely had to think about, how am I going to get activity periods of an octopus? So when you're looking at activity periods of an animal, you need to make sure that you record what it's doing all 24 hours so you know where it's at. And I really didn't want to dive at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning because I like my sleep. So I had to figure out, well, how am I going to get videos at those hours? And that's when we came up with the Octopus monitoring gadget, or I like to call it the OMG. And so what this is, it's a 24-hour camera that I leave underwater. And you can kind of see the setup right here. We've got an underwater housing, and inside that underwater housing is a GoPro. So here it is in action on the right side of the screen, underwater housing with the GoPro. It's my camera. And then I have a red light. So this red light allows me to see what's going on underwater during the nighttime. And octopuses are actually they're insensitive to the red wavelength. So the idea is that they will go and do natural foraging behaviors. They won't be disrupted by this red light. And so we put all of this together for the 24-hour camera. And so sometimes things don't go to plan. Here's one of the first deployments of the Octopus monitoring gadget. You can see it's out there. And I'm saying, hey, Octo, like this isn't a rock. This isn't your new home. As you can see, the octopus starts exploring it. He's looking all around. It leaves its den. And what happened is it started to dig underneath right here. It started to move sand away. And I thought like, well, oh great, now the octopus is creating its new den under my camera. Like this is gonna be a problem because I need the octopus on the camera, not behind it. And what's really cool is that I then took this footage because I wanted to see like, what exactly does that look like from the viewpoint of the OMG? So we're gonna take a look at that next. Here the octopus is, so you can see that rock and rubble structure for the den of the common octopus. See that arm kind of pan across. So you can see, so a little fun fact, sometimes people say octopus tentacles. It's actually octopus arms because arms are aligned completely with suckers. Tentacles only have suckers at the very end. So this octopus has arms lined with suckers. It's got about 200 suckers per each arm. So that is a lot of suckers that they use to help them crawl around, maybe on a camera, secure themselves to a rock, and to also capture prey. So that octopus could not be trusted. And I said, I'm not leaving my camera here because this octopus is definitely gonna live under it or go off. And so we found another octopus to put the OMG under, and this is actually the first footage of using the OMG. So I was really nervous. I was hoping like, oh, I hope this camera is gonna get water in it. I'm always diving with a scientific diver. So she was there watching the octopus. Here's after we set down the camera and the octopus actually leaves to forage, a short foraging event. And so you can see in the video, it probably happens here, that you can almost see the octopus's arms move underneath its mouth. And so there we know that the octopus is looking for food, it's foraging. And then I would watch this video and I take note of the time that the octopus is out of its den foraging for food. All right. And so it does a short trip back to its den. And this is shortly after midnight, so I'm probably sleeping by now. The octopus takes off. I'm not gonna make you watch 24 hours of video, so I fast forward it. And we've got the octopus jumping over the camera, right back to its den. And so that was actually, the octopus left its den for about 72 minutes in that video. So I did this several times for the common octopus like you saw in the video, and I also did it for the Atlantic longarm so I could figure out their activity periods. And I actually reviewed over 1,000 hours of octopus video. However, I would speed it up here and there, but there was a lot of cool footage that I made note of. And again, a lot of work in science, but we've got really clear and really cool results to add to this story of octopus coexistence. So what we saw, just like you guys saw in the video, is that this common octopus comes out at night and forages. And the peak time that most of the octopuses came out in my video was at 10 p.m. For the Atlantic longarm, it was the complete opposite. This is a day active animal, and it's coming out during the daytime, when the sun is shining, and the Atlantic longarm forages usually around 1 p.m. or definitely in the afternoon. And so this has definitely helped out with my research that I'm doing now, because now I get to figure out like and plan my dives of where I go and what times I need to go on my dives so I can do more research on these animals. All right. So we check off another research question. We know where they live. We know how they make their homes. They come out at different times of the day, so maybe they don't run into each other. And now we get to talk about their diet. So what does an octopus eat? And so one method of collecting diet information about an octopus is to collect its prey remains. I like to say the common octopus is a messy eater. So you can see in the video, it usually scatters all the shells of the animals it eats like around its den. So that's my magic science hand. That's me, and I took away all those shells and I'm lining them up to take photos to ID them. Octopus really wasn't happy about that. Maybe I messed up its home decor. And so the octopus actually came to check me out. So that's me diving, so you can kind of see the size of this octopus. It's not too big. We have a lot of juvenile octopuses here. And then it's checking out my camera. They can be very curious animals, but shortly after, it goes back to its den. And again, notice the structure that the common octopus needs to create its home. And I left the shells there and the octopus was able to redecorate. So it's nice for this animal because all I need to do is look at the shells, collect them, or take pictures, and I'm able to get a lot of information about what this animal is eating. However, that wasn't really the case for the Atlantic longarm. And so this animal, remember, lives in the sand. It doesn't leave any prey remains around its hole because that may bring predators to its home if it knows that something is living there. So this octopus actually eats on the run or the swim. And you can see here it's foraging, it's looking for food along the sand. There's some algae on there. And it's extending its arms out. And so there's one crab right there. So the octopus reaches and is able to reach all around that crab and get it. And so what's also interesting and cool is that octopuses, like I mentioned, will eat on the run. The octopus has the crab under its arms, but it finds another crab right there. and takes it under its arms as well. So octopuses need a lot of food. They grow really, really fast. And so usually when they're searching for food, they'll find multiple prey items if they're small, and they'll gather them. And so that's what I used multiple methods to figure out what this octopus was doing. And so as you saw, I was out in the field collecting shells. I was following the octopus on foraging events. And my OMG, that video, I was also able to capture information about their diet. So I used multiple methods to get a better idea of what these species were eating. And to kind of look at that, this is first the information for the common octopus. And you can see that this octopus ate a ton of different stuff. And so for the common octopus, if you can just follow my yellow rectangle right here, it ate, so I looked at 32 different common octopus, and I collected 67 bivalves. So these are the representatives of those bivalves, or animals with two shells. And so the main one that the common octopus ate was this one right here. This Chione elevata is the scientific name. If we move along and we talk about gastropods, you may be familiar with the different types of conchs. So that's a type of gastropod. So this octopus, the common octopus, ate different types of gastropods, like the conchs here, and all the way down the line. So 36 different gastropods I collected. And for crustaceans, it was mainly crabs. So we have different types of rough box crabs. These are actually the claws from a small stone crab that can get quite large and have really strong claws. And also this is a picture of a mantis shrimp. And mantis shrimp are definitely known to be really, really tough animals. But the octopus is able to capture and catch and have this mantis shrimp for dinner. Next up, if you follow that yellow rectangle, we've got the Atlantic longarm octopus. And you see, from my samples, I was only able to find one bivalve and then 0 gastropods. I didn't see this animal eat any gastropods like conchs. And then finally, we have crustaceans. So this animal loves crustaceans, really loves crabs. You saw the common octopus kind of was eating a variety of different things. And we see that the Atlantic longarm is eating mostly crustaceans. So we have definitely the same type of crustaceans or crabs that we saw the common octopus eat. Again, eating the mantis shrimp. And some of them were so tiny, I wasn't able to identify 2 species. And also this was a really cool photo from another diver at Blue Heron Bridge. And it may be a little difficult to see, but we've got a swimming crab right here. And this swimming crab actually has eggs. So this octopus got a really good meal. All right, so a lot about diet and a lot about what kinds of food this octopus eats. Well, how exactly does an octopus eat these animals that either have a hard shell or a hard exoskeleton? So if you look at this octopus anatomy and I have it boxed in here, we're gonna focus on the mouth right here and the beak of this animal. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip that so the octopus, if you were to like pick it up and flip it over, you kind of have all the arms, what we call the arm crown. In the middle of the arm crown is that beak shown right here. And so the beak, very similar to a bird beak, is really hard. And what that beak can do is it can actually crack or break a shell if it's thin enough, or an exoskeleton of a crab. And here's a really cool thing. If the shell or the skeleton of the animal is too hard to break and takes too much energy to break, the octopus will actually drill a hole in the animal. And how it does this, it's called the salivary papilla is the fancy name, but it's like a little tiny drill in the octopus's mouth. You can kind of see it kind of looks like a drill. What it will do is it will use this little drill to drill a hole in the bivalve or gastropod. After it drills that tiny hole, it then, from this salivary gland, will inject its saliva. And the saliva has toxins and different enzymes. And what this does is the toxins will paralyze the animal. And the enzymes actually help break down the animal or the animal's meat that make it easier for the octopus to eat. So let's see some, I'm going to show you this in action. So here we go. We've got the octopus swooping up that bivalve with its arms and brings it down. There's the beak, and here's the injection of the venom. You can't really see the drill, but they inject the venom. What it does is a clam or a bivalve will use its muscles to keep it shut. If it's paralyzed, its muscles, the muscles relax, the clam or the bivalve falls open, and then the octopus can get inside to eat all the yummy stuff. And so this is just a nice view of the octopus. As you can see here, the top beak is shorter than the bottom one. So I like to say the octopuses have like an underbite. And also I forgot to mention, but it's a fun fact, that octopuses around their mouth, they also have lips like we do. And so a really cool thing is that since the octopus, they don't have any bones or hard structures, they can expand their arms and they can expand their webbing around really large prey items. So the prey items can be pretty big, and also since they can break them up and start digesting the prey items, they can take on really large prey items like you see in this picture, about the size of the octopus. As you can see here, this octopus is wrapping its arms and wrapping its webbing around this swimming crab. You can kind of see the octopus is kind of rotating, trying to figure out like, well, I've got a really big meal, but how am I actually going to tackle eating this or get it around so this crab doesn't escape? And octopuses are really strong animals. They're pretty much like a ball of protein, so they've got really strong arms. Remember, 200 suction cups on each arm, so they're able to get a really great grasp on anything that they've got. And usually what they try to do is they'll try to take the prey item down into their den, but this prey item is a little large, and so it really can't fit inside the octopus's den. But it's definitely protecting that meal because it's a good meal for an octopus. All right, and so I mentioned drilling. And so you can see here, what I looked at is if I could actually see drill holes in the octopus, an octopus's food, I should say. And so I'm just gonna put a circle up right here. So this is one of the collections I got from a bivalve. And there's the drill hole of the octopus right here. And if you flip the shell over, you can see it's not very big. It's about the size or smaller of like a pen or a pencil tip. Maybe even smaller than that. It's really tiny, but it doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be big enough to where they can inject that venom. And so we have that drill hole right here. And what's really cool, it might be hard to tell in the picture, but there's actually a groove right here. And so I'm gonna put a gray circle on top. That groove is actually where the clam's muscle is. So the octopus figures out where exactly it needs to drill for the best drill site to inject its venom, and injects it basically almost straight into the muscle with that venom. And so then paralyzes the muscle, the clam opens up, gets its food. And so you can see over here, more strategy from the octopus, and it has a drill hole right here. So I looked at, if you've maybe heard of an operculum or the foot of a gastropod, if you've ever seen a conch move or walk, at the end of a foot, it has this really hard operculum, or they call it the trap door. So if the conch gets scared, it closes up and you see that really hard foot. Well, if a gastropod like a conch has a hard operculum and an octopus can't get inside, it will drill a hole where the muscle is, where the muscle starts, right up here. Drill that hole and inject the venom into this gastropod. So it's pretty neat to see. And octopuses also, I saw in crab claws. Sometimes the octopus would drill a hole in crab claws, so then it would paralyze the claw so the crabs couldn't use their claws as defense when the octopus was trying to eat it. So very clever octopuses. And so that's a lot of information that I just wanted to recap really quick and give a summary about all the research questions that were answered at Blue Heron Bridge about these two octopus species. So we found out, or I found out, that these octopuses use different resources to help coexist. We saw before that they were underwater neighbors living really close to each other. But Blue Hand is that patchy environment. So the common octopus lives in rock and rubble. The Atlantic longarm lives in that sandy home. It's a sand-dwelling octopus. There's some diet overlap. However, the common octopus is eating mostly bivalves, and the Atlantic longarm is eating mostly crabs. And this also helps that they feed and look for food at different times of the day, so they aren't physically running into each other when there's a large number of them there at the same time during the springtime. So this is really important for marine conservation and many marine food webs, because we need to know what habitats octopuses need to survive. We need to know what food that they need. So this increases biodiversity, all the animals that we can see in different environments. But also it's really important for understanding marine food webs and the important role that octopuses play. So we saw that they are right in the middle of that marine food web. So they're an important predator on animals such as those crabs and the bivalves that I mentioned, but they're also an important meal for our top predators in the marine food web. So it's this nice balance that we need octopuses. We need octopuses there and to stay healthy to make sure our marine food webs are good. And so you might be wondering, well, what is an octopus predator? And this was another great thing that the OMG was used for. Since I can't be underwater all the time, I was able to get a lot of footage, not just on their activity periods, but also what is going on underwater and maybe what does an octopus encounter. And so I mentioned that octopuses are mostly protein, so they have a lot of predators. Everything wants to eat them. And they are definitely a target because they don't have an external shell, a hard shell to protect them. So as you can see here, diving down is a marine bird, a double-crested cormorant. And so you wouldn't think of it, but octopuses have predators from above that dive down and try to eat them. They also have predators in the water column. And so this is more footage from the OMG. It looks kind of pink because that's the red LED light. And here we go, we've got some great camouflage, but you'll see from the bottom of your screen, this predator come by, this mutton snapper. And that octopus tries to look really big and scary to startle that snapper. We've also got benthic predators like stingrays. So you've got predators above, you've got predators in the water column like that fish, and you've got benthic predators, maybe like stingrays along the bottom. And here's another predator coming up that actually specializes in eating octopuses, and that's an eel. This is specifically a purple mouth eel. And this is around 10 p.m. This was shortly after I put down the OMG and swam back to the shore to end my dive. All of this happened. And so shortly you'll see the eel's head poke out. There it is. I kind of put my cursor over it. You can see the eel's head pop out. The octopus very carefully walks back, trying to decide, what exactly am I going to do about this? Doesn't want to be that eel's meal. Thinks about it. Says, nope, I'm out of here. And you see that eel just missed it. Just missed a good meal, but the octopus got away. There we go. And so we saw octopuses have a lot of predators, and so they've got to be masters of disguise. The name of the game is don't look like a predator. So they have, and what you might be aware of, is they have amazing camouflage, and some people call it smart skin. So they're able to change the color of their skin, the texture of their skin in less than a second. So they can do a camouflage by matching their environment. That's the Atlantic longarm. They can mimic other animals like this flatfish swimming. They can look like other objects like the moving rock trick that this common octopus is doing. And so octopuses are creative. They're figuring out, if I'm moving across a sandy environment, I don't have structure to hide behind. So what am I going to be? This octopus is looking like a plant or maybe algae in the surrounding environment. So you're trying not to look like an octopus, especially if you are an octopus foraging during the daytime when predators, visual predators like fish may be around. You want to make sure that they don't see you. And again, you have, like I mentioned, skin color, skin texture. Animals can raise their skin up like super goosebumps, but also this posture that they take on. So octopuses will do twirls with their arms to make them look like algae to trick predators. And so understanding all this octopus behavior is definitely important for future research and how we can apply it to different fields of science. So I briefly just mentioned what their arms are doing and their different postures. So another research project that I just started working on is looking at octopus arm behavior. And right here, first I was looking at it to figure out how the octopus is foraging and what the octopus's arms do. Do they reach out? Do they bend? Do they twist? Also looking at the arm webbing, if it expands. So looking at these different arm movements to figure out all the different capabilities that the octopus can do. And remember, these octopus don't have bones. They have what's known as a muscular hydrostat. So you can think of it as like your tongue is a muscular hydrostat or an elephant's trunk. So they can pretty much move their arms any which way that they want. And this is really important for other fields. And so we call this bioinspiration. We're using nature or biology to inspire what's going on in other fields. And first, robots were really rigid. However, there's a new field, of soft robotics. And so octopuses have been a huge inspiration for soft robotics. And you can see in here, this one's called Octobot and was developed by scientists at Harvard. And so this is really cool, and this is different applications for this, maybe in the military, maybe search and recovery, or the medical field. And it also would be really cool if you maybe had an Octobot with a camera on it that actually cruises around a coral reef. Gets in all those nooks and crannies that a rigid robot couldn't do. Figure out how the health is of different marine environments. And so that's one arm behavior project that I'm working on that was inspired from octopus behavior. And of course, the big component of octopus behavior is their really smart skin. And so this is just a quick breakdown of what their skin is composed of. So we can think of it, we'll keep it at 3 simple layers. So you saw how quick they can change their skin, and I talked about the iridescent colors of that Caribbean octopus. Well, this is how they do it and how they can do it so fast. So you have 3 different layers. You can think of it as the top layer. They have special cells called chromatophores. And so these cells are actually, you can think of them as maybe like balloons, these round sacs full of pigment or different colors of pigment. So we have these little sacs that have black pigment, red pigment, yellow pigment. And if you focus over here, these cells are attached to muscles. And if the octopus's brain tells that muscle to hey, expand these black chromatophores, the muscles will expand that sac and the octopus will appear black or very, very dark. You can also retract those and expand the red ones that you see over here. If it expands those, the octopus looks red. But we've got different layers that adds to the complexity. If you do not expand those, chromatophores, in your second layer, you've got these other special cells that are called iridophores. And that does the iridescent effects, or that's where you get all your pinks, greens, and blues, and all the pretty iridescent colors that you see in the octopus. So sometimes these can shine through different areas if it's open, or if the octopus's chromatophores are all the way closed or retracted, you'll see this shine through. And then your bottom layer has what are called the leucophores. So this reflects white and ambient light. So you can imagine they have thousands or millions of these chromatophores and reflective cells, the iridophores and leucophores. So a lot of different combinations the octopus can do of expanding and retracting different chromatophores in different areas. And that's how you can get all these different color patterns. So it gets pretty complex. And it gets really complex when you start looking at these color patterns and you try to use them to identify the different types of octopus. But that's what we're doing in another project. And it helps a lot when you're out in the field and you know the different color patterns a certain species can do. And so I'm just going to give you this example right here. This is known as Octopus insularis. And this octopus is known for, it has a pale color right here. So it can do many color combinations, but this is just one that Octopus insularis is known for that other species can't do. And that's how we know it's Octopus insularis. So pale color, you've got this eye bar right here, and this dark eye bar kind of blends in or goes across the pupil. And again, it's to hide that eye. So the predators can't detect this is an octopus. And underneath, by its arms and suckers, we have this pattern that's kind of looks patchy, or has the red and white pattern to it. And so this is one major key characteristic of Octopus insularis. And I'm telling you guys all this information because I'm really excited that this species was only known to be in Brazil waters. And usually it was just recently discovered, this new species. It looks really similar to the common octopus, the one that I talked a lot about, except the common octopus doesn't have this red under its arms. Only insularis does. And scientists first thought that this octopus was only in Brazil. However, I reached out to the community, and this also gets at why community science is so important and why scientists like myself need your help when for scientific discovery. So I reached out to a lot of scuba divers that dive the Florida area, that dive in blue heron, and I said, hey, I'm doing a project on species identification. I'm looking at Caribbean species and Florida octopus species. So I had him, he sent me a lot of octopus images, and this is one of his images. And I said, where did you take this? And he said, oh, that was in Florida. And I said, really? And so I sent it to the scientists that I work with in Brazil. And I said, guess what? That octopus that you think only lives in Brazil, I think it's in Florida too. So they were thinking Florida might be the northern range. Well, it looks like it's already here. So we're learning more about maybe a new species in Florida. We still need to do, genetic testing to figure out if this is Octopus insularis. But it's exciting to see that octopus species may be different in Florida. Geographical ranges might be changing. So it's really important to figure out this information for octopus populations. And so stay tuned for this exciting project and why it's super important for community science and for you guys, for us to have your guys' help. So definitely, if you have the opportunity to volunteer with any scientific organization, to go diving with anyone, or you just love underwater photography or get into it, definitely do that and share with the scientists. We do appreciate your help. All right, and so I'm just going to quickly wrap up with the last project that I'll be working on. We started to get some research done on this, but it may be postponed to next spring. And so this is looking at bacteria in the octopus. So scientists know that bacteria can play a key role in cephalopod lifestyles. And so this has been shown in the bobtail squid. So it looks like this squid is lighting up or producing light. And well, that's because it is, but it couldn't produce this light without bacteria. So this squid has a light organ, and these bioluminescent or light-producing bacteria live in this light organ. And so this is important for the squid to avoid predators. So just to give you an example, if you're out late at night and you have this fish If you don't have that light organ, you can see a shadow and a silhouette. But if you produce that light, the light from the light organ minimizes that shadow, and it helps camouflage that squid to its environment. Like I mentioned before, the blue ringed octopus, right, is that deadly octopus. So all octopuses have venom, but there's a key difference in the blue ringed octopus. It has venom that has the toxin TTX. So this really potent neurotoxin that you also find in pufferfish. So it's not just an octopus. And that's because this toxin comes from bacteria. So we have these symbiotic relationships of cephalopods and bacteria, which brings me to my last research questions. Like, well, we know that these relationships with bacteria exist, and maybe there's also bacteria living on the octopus's skin to keep it healthy. And this hasn't been done in the field yet. And I mentioned that octopuses are really important for many marine food webs. So we need to make sure that they remain healthy. And if there is a unique set of bacteria living on their skin, we definitely need to know what it is and how to make sure that these octopuses stay healthy. So I call this project SWOB. This is swabbing octopus bellies. And so I'm swabbing the mantle of the octopus. The mantle has mucus on it. In that mucus, we think that there's bacteria. So I first did some tests underwater. You can see this is the Atlantic longarm, and it's a really tiny octopus, just from the video. So I did some, last spring I did some test runs to see if I could swab an octopus underwater. Samples weren't the best, and previous research also shows that you can briefly take the octopus out of water. They'll be okay for a quick 30 seconds or less. You swab the octopus and then you release them back in their home. So that's the plan, to get better samples of swabbing the octopus. So I'm really excited to start that project, but I'll be busy working on the other two. And so that is what I've been working on, and that's a little or a lot about octopus biology. And with that, I'm gonna wrap up and take some questions. So I share all my octopus research on my social media pages and give cool octopus facts, so definitely follow along. If you've got any questions, you can also send me an email.
I live at Blue Heron Bridge.
You do?
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like I lived at Blue Heron Bridge because I was there so often. All right, I think I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and maybe pull up the chat.
Yeah, we've had quite a few questions in the chat. If you think of any, feel free to throw them in.
I'll try to, let's see. I've got one question. Are there any species of octopus in Florida that have venom dangerous to humans? So I've never been bit by an octopus. I know that some people have. You would really have to make an octopus angry, or probably grab it and handle it for it to bite you. I haven't had that experience. I try to pay attention to the octopus's behavior, and if it does seem agitated, I leave it alone. People do say, I think, the bite does hurt and they will feel a little sting, maybe from the venom, but it's nothing deadly compared to the blue ringed octopus in the Indo-Pacific. Okay, so here's a good one about, so the eye is a very important part of the octopus. If eye gets damaged, can they regenerate? Can they live without eyes? That's a great question. I don't think they can regenerate their eyes at all. There are only parts that I think the octopus, or one of the only parts the octopus can regenerate, are its arms. So in certain species, there are breakage points along the arms, where kind of like a lizard tail, where they can break off that part and they can regenerate the arm. I do not think that's the case. For the eye, so hopefully they have at least one eye, since they are such visual predators. They also, so I don't think I mentioned about the suckers, but the suckers, they not only can they feel texture, but they can also taste. So they can kind of taste the environment with their suckers. So it would be like if you touch something with your fingers, not only would you feel like its texture if it was smooth or rough, but you would also taste it. So they know if something's a good prey item or not. Let's see, since some gastropods use their radula to drill a hole into a bivalve to eat, is there any way to tell the difference between gastropod-made hole versus octopus-made hole? Good question. And so, yeah, I definitely mentioned that the main structure that drills the hole is that salivary papilla that looks like the drill, but the radula does also help out to drill a little bit. But there are key differences to tell if it is a gastropod or a octopus drill hole. And that definitely has to do with the size and the shape of the hole, as well as where the hole may be at. So there's been papers published where you'll see only in specific locations, usually where the muscles are on that bivalve is where the octopus will drill, because they know where to drill after they have some time to figure that out. So it's usually the place where the drill hole is, the shape and size of the drill hole. Let's see, I'm trying to scroll. Does the octopus have one or two siphons? The siphon or the funnel, so it looked like that little orange snorkel, that's the funnel of the octopus, and they only have one. They only have one funnel, but they can direct it in all the different ways. So they could, if they're swimming away, they push water out so they can swim away from a predator. And so they can expel different things out of the siphon. So they push water out of the siphon. They push waste like poop out of the siphon. And that's also where their ink comes out of if they expel ink at a predator. Okay. Let's see, this is a good question too. You guys got great questions. Can they tell one octopus from another? That's a great question. And so they can recognize if it's an octopus, but scientists don't think that they can recognize if it's the same species or not unless they do some chemotactile recognition. So if their suckers touch. So I like to call it an octopus handshake. And I'm going to share my screen again. So I put this at the very end because it's a really cool video. I'm going to share it with you for the octopus handshake. So usually in the field, they'll recognize, oh, an octopus is there, but they don't know, like, is it another common octopus or is it a different one, unless they do a secret handshake. So I'm going to share real quick. All right, can you guys see the octopus right here? See some nods? Awesome. So in the back, this is the common octopus. In the front is the Atlantic longarm octopus, kind of standing up on its arms. And you'll see them reach their arms out towards each other for the octopus handshake to figure out, well, I see you there, but I don't know if I want to interact with you or not. Ooh, and it happens super fast. So super fast recognition. They do that handshake and they decide like, nope, you're a different type of octopus. I don't want anything to do with you. And that's another way that they can coexist, also by doing those handshakes, saying like, nope, you go your way, I'll go my way. All right, so that was a really cool photo. I'm glad you asked that question so I could share that with you guys. I mentioned that octopus can regrow their arms. Yep. Love the blue. Yes, the blue ring is really, really pretty. Just got to be careful around it. Definitely respect animals in nature. Usually if you see this, not only for octopus, but any animals that's showing a really bright color usually is a warning sign that it could be dangerous or toxic. So you definitely don't want to touch it or mess around with it. So usually just observe and look at the awesome animals underwater with your eyes. Let's see. Can you add octopus massage therapist to your resume now? I hope so. After all my belly rub experience, I'll see if I can do that. All right. I'm trying to read these quickly. It's Kiefer's birthday. Happy birthday. I hope they're still on. I don't know if I'm running out of time. Let's see. Trying to read. Toxic octopus can kill humans. So the blue ring, there have been some deaths, some fatalities to humans from the blue ring. And it's really important to, what they know about the blue ring is that it's so tiny and that you don't necessarily feel the bite. It just happens. So if you are ever visiting beaches or diving in the Indo-Pacific area, and if you think or if you know that you've come in contact with a blue ring octopus, definitely just go to the hospital or seek medical attention right away, because they can bite you and you don't even feel it. So it's really important that you know that. And they're really small, so they can live in shells. And so if you are maybe collecting shells or in like a tide pool area, you may not know that there's an octopus in there. So it's really important also to look in shells if you're a shell collector. A kind of cool, funny thing is that there is a lot of bottles, cans under Blue Heron Bridge, and I'm sure in other areas as well. Well, octopuses will actually use those for homes. So a bottle or a can has a really small opening. And remember, the octopus doesn't have bones, so it fits in that tiny opening, but then it's got a lot of space, a nice living room in the back. So the octopus can fit in there and kind of expand out, but that tiny opening doesn't let predators in. So whenever you're doing, I've done underwater beach cleanups, and that's why I'm mentioning this, is that I'll always, if I'm picking up a can or a bottle, I'll look inside and I will make sure there's not an octopus in there, or you can maybe get the octopus out, give them an actual natural habitat if you are cleaning up trash. Let's see, I think I mentioned, yeah, can octopus, yeah, I think I already read that one. Octopus can regrow lost arms. Yes, they can. And it's really amazing how fast they can, I'm not going to say regrow arms, but regrow arm tips. So there was a study done where they just clipped the tip of the octopus, and the octopus started to close up that wound within 2 hours. And within 60 hours, that wound closure was over 50%. And so I would say, let's see, it was a few days where they had like a little nub for an arm tip. And then within like 100 days, they had a new arm tip ready to go. So, but it definitely depends on probably how much of the arm gets chopped off. But yeah, they can regrow. Can they, oh, got that one. Let me scroll all the way to the bottom. I don't know if I missed any. Do octopuses have 3 hearts? All right, I did miss some. More questions coming in. Yes, octopuses do have 3 hearts. So they've got 2 hearts that pump blood to their gills. So the deoxygenated blood, so the blood that needs oxygen, gets pumped to the gills by those 2 gill hearts. And so after that blood gets oxygen in it, that oxygenated blood is then pumped to the rest of the body by the main or the systemic heart, and so then goes to the rest of the body. And I'll just follow up with that with the blood. Octopuses also have blue blood. So they don't have iron, they actually have copper as their in their blood. And so they've got blue blood, 3 hearts. And let's see, how long do they live? That definitely ranges, but just thinking about octopuses in general, all octopuses are short-lived. So the 2 species that I studied, the common octopus and the Atlantic longarm, they live for about a year to a year and a half, probably like max 2 years. So they're relatively short-lived. And so the large giant Pacific octopus that can weigh like 300 to 500 pounds only lives for 5 years. And so when I was mentioning in the presentation where they're just gathering food as fast as they can because their bodies grow super fast, and they're short-lived, so they grow super fast to their adult stage, and they mate to pass on their genes, and that's their life. Let's see, trying to say anything else.
I think you hit all the questions.
Woo, all right. If not,
we did,
you know where to find me. I'll answer more. I'll make it a post.
exactly. If we missed a question, you could either retype or email it to the MEEC, and we could definitely pass it on to Chelsea. She also listed her different social media. Definitely follow her if you want to keep up to date on all the octopus things.
Yeah. Can I show one more video?
Yeah,
Sorry.
absolutely.
It's not it's not octopus related. Well, it can kind of be. So it was mentioned at the very beginning that I do a lot of octopus research, but I also do STEM education. Are you guys familiar with STEM? Science, technology, engineering, and math? Awesome. So with Florida Atlantic University, I do the STEM education program called Ascend. And that's advancing STEM community engagement through neuroscience discovery. Ooh, so I want to show a short video, and it gives you a quick overview of the Ascend program and what we do. Let's see. Okay, share.
I thought the Neuro Explorers program was a really good program. I didn't know very much about the brain in the beginning, but they taught me so many different things.
All right, so that's just a quick overview about the really cool program that you guys can join. So the program's focused on grades 6 through 8. And so we teach neuroscience topics. So I didn't know much about neuroscience at your age, and I'm always learning more about neuroscience now. So if you guys are interested in just learning about what is neuroscience and like the different sciences and doing really cool hands-on activities, I encourage you to check out our website or visit South Florida Science Center. They have a page for us about our program. So our program for the fall will be virtual. So we'll be doing lesson plans online, but the really cool thing is that we're actually gonna send the students brain boxes. So the what this is, it sounds a little weird to call it a brain box, I know, but it will be all the materials you guys need to do the hands-on experiments or experiences. So we get all of that material, put it in a brain box, and we send it to you. So it's like a cool package that you can get once a month, and you can do these experiments at home. And then we talk about it online in our cool science club. So registration will be posted soon. You can definitely check South Florida Science Center. Our first class is September 2nd. So I would love to have you guys. It looks like everyone's interested in science, so you should check it out. That's it. That's it from me for now.
Yep, that's awesome. If you want to email us any of the information, we'll be happy to share it on the MEEC social media. So if any of you guys want to look into it more, we should hopefully have some resources you could check it out on. Otherwise, thank you so much, Chelsea, for today. This was really interesting, very cool. If you guys have any sort of issues or questions, please feel free to email us at meek@nova.edu, MEEC, and we'll pass them on to Chelsea if you can't find her. Otherwise, we do have a program next week. We're still doing every Tuesday to Thursday at 1 p.m. So next week we have George L. Heinrich talking about the Big Turtle Year initiative. He is a really cool Florida reptile expert. He's going to talk to us all about the different turtles. So please join us next week at 1 p.m. on Tuesday for that. Otherwise, keep an eye on our social media, and we should hopefully be posting our August schedule sometime soon. And if you missed any of this program, it is recorded. We will be posting it onto our YouTube channel. We have a little issue with video editing at the moment, but we will slowly be catching up as we move forward. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Chelsea.
Yeah.
Have a good one.